Hi, everyone. How are you? Can everyone hear me okay? Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. I think Rhonda Gracie has a lot of fans out there. That's what I think. All right. So we're getting started. We might have some people wander in. It's a very popular program. Welcome to Horticulture Corner, UNF Gardens. UNF is such a gem, and I think we don't spend enough time talking about what a great institution it is and what a great, beautiful campus it's become. You're going to learn all about that today. My name is Denise Reagan. I'm the executive director of the Garden Club of Jacksonville. With me today is Corinne Lightfoot. She's our marketing and membership manager. She helped check you in. I want to talk a minute about membership. I want to thank all the Garden Club members who have joined us today. Could you raise your hands? Fantastic. While you have it up, you can give yourselves a big pat on the back. Fantastic. Thank you so much for being here. If you're not a member of the Garden Club, please chat with someone from our staff, one of the people who raised their hands. Pick up a form at the table or go to gardenclubjacks.org to learn more about membership. We would love to tell you all about it. There's so many great programs coming up this year and lots of great member benefits. So there's no bad time to join. I'd also like to thank all the members of the Board of Trustees who are here today. I know that Kathy Gray, our treasurer, helped check you in. Thank you, Kathy. And I was trying to see if there was anybody else here. Oh, there's Michelle Villasenor. She is on our board. And who else are you pointing to? Someone? Oh, hey, there's Irene. Irene Woodworth. She's snuck in on me. Hi, Irene. Irene Woodworth is also on our Board of Trustees. They do a lot of work all throughout the year. So thank them for being such great uber volunteers, I will call them. All right. I'd like to talk about a couple of upcoming programs that are coming up. We have our next one is gourmet mushrooms in the horticulture series. Noah Schliefler, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, is of Harmony Mushroom Company, and he's going to teach you how to cultivate your own gourmet mushrooms at home. Learn DIY techniques or DIY mycology, including growing mushrooms on recycled materials. We invite all local hobbyists and mycologists in the Jacksonville area to connect at this program so we can all learn from each other. That's July 16th. So put that on your calendars. It's already blowing up. We've had like almost 200 people register for that. All right, the next one in our series is lazy gardening. Join Chanel Davis Bryant in exploring the ethos of lazy, chaotic gardener to create a garden that you can love to be in without pressure or pretense. Gardening can be our place to leave the perfectionism, the shoulds, and the I really need tos behind us. So join Chanel Davis Bryant for Lazy Gardening. That's August 6th. A couple of our budding gardeners programs that are coming up. We have Budding Gardeners Superb Herbs on June 15th. Stephanie Rush of the Spice and Tea Exchange of San Marco will be helping us with a fun morning of activities. Children will learn how to mix dried herbs to create custom blends, then take home tea bags to enjoy at home. So if you're interested in that, if you've got some children or grandchildren that want to take part, there are still a few spots left. And then the next one after that is Wiggly Worms on July 13th. Tay Hinton of Little Earth Wigglers will help you learn about the wonderful world of worms. Children will learn about the important role worms play in the garden and how you can create compost using worms. So that's July 13th. And we have our volunteer day coming up in preparation for summer. We have a day of planting, trimming, pruning, weeding, and cleanup all around our campus. It takes a village to keep the garden club grounds and surrounding area looking its best. So we appreciate all volunteers. So please join us on June 29th. And it's never too early to talk about the Jacksonville Fair Horticulture Show. How many people have entered plants in the horticulture show in the past? Raise your hands. We've only got a very few. It's not hard. It doesn't cost anything. And you could win actual money and, of course, bragging rights, which I think is super cool. So you can enter your plants in the Jacksonville Fair Horticulture Show. It happens November 7th through 17th. Entries are due November 4th and 5th. You know, we are so lucky to have a long growing season and relatively mild winters, so we can grow all sorts of stuff here all year long. So you can pick up a call for entries today. It's at the desk when you checked in. All right, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speaker for the day. Rhonda Gracie graduated from Florida International University with a bachelor's degree in architectural studies. She also has a degree in parks and recreation maintenance management from North Carolina State University. She is the former landscape architect for the cities of Clearwater and Miami Beach, where she has won many awards for notable projects and sustainability efforts. Since 2013, she has been the horticulturist at the University of North Florida, where she and her department are responsible for the management of more than 1,600 acres. She serves on many professional boards and committees and has focused on transforming the campus into a botanical garden. If you have questions for Rhonda, please raise your hand and she will call on you. She may wait till the end of her presentation. I'm going to leave that up to her, but I'll ask her to repeat your question so we can capture it on the recording we're doing today. We also have a survey that we want you to take. We'll put this up afterward, this QR code. We really, really want your feedback. It means so much to us to know what you think and how, what ideas you have for our future programs. So please take our survey. We'll send it to you afterward in an email, but you could do it tonight and just be all done with it. All right. Without further ado, please welcome Rhonda Gracie.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming out. I had no idea how many people were going to be coming. This is absolutely amazing. I want to talk a little bit about the UNF Botanical Garden. As was mentioned by Denise, we have 1,600 acres. We have over 125 acres that are developed into gardens, curated gardens. Our mission and vision are up on top if you want to read through it. But basically, the bottom line is we're looking at being the most sustainable garden that we can possibly be while maintaining, and sorry, I lost where I was at. Forgive me, it's been a long day. If you had any idea. So we want a garden for wildlife. We want to make sure that we're being sustainable using the best practices. We are messy gardeners. Chanel is one of my dear friends, and when you go to see her lazy gardening program, I think you'll love it. You're going to find that a lot of what I'm going to talk about, it has to do with a lot of lazy gardening on our own behalf. When I started this journey, we started out with, in 2013, I had 35 employees that worked for me. I have less than 20 now, and my budget has been cut 5% every year for the last 5 years, and I work on a maintenance budget. So how are we doing all of this? Well, we're doing it because we got a hold of the Duval County IFAS Extension Office when I was told that they would like me because we couldn't maintain our gardens anymore to the level of desired standards and turn them back into grass. I was like, oh, heck no, that's not going to happen. I'm not doing that. So I called Larry Feigart in October 2020 and said, we all know when that was, right? Middle of COVID? Yeah. October 2020. And I said, I need help. So I sent a letter and I asked for volunteers. I had 6 master gardeners respond in less than 12 hours. Many of those same gardeners that started with me are still with me. And it's because of them, plus my really dedicated staff that have bought into the vision, that's got us to where we're at. So we actually were kind of blessed with COVID. We were able to get into spaces we couldn't get into with a lot of traffic with 17, almost 18,000 students. So we were able to go from our offices, which takes by a golf cart from where we're housed, which is nice, because everything stays undercover. So we're not replacing, like say, for example, lawnmower seats. Instead of replacing them every 2 months, we replace them every 2 years. But it's a 15-minute drive minimum to get to campus. So if you can take how many times you got to make trips back and forth, you forgot a shovel, you forgot this, you forgot that. We were losing a tremendous amount of time. So by having the shutdown, we were able to stage things where it was closer. We were able to get a lot of things caught up. And then having skilled volunteers really, really made a difference for us. And then we absolutely wholeheartedly embraced Florida-friendly landscape principles. How many people here are familiar with Florida-friendly landscaping principles? Okay, so a good majority of you. For those who aren't familiar with it, the program's been in place for a little over 30 years, about 30, I think it's 31 now. They just celebrated the 30th anniversary. And essentially, it's the best maintenance practices there are. There's 9 prevailing principles. I won't go into it tonight because we're going to talk about our gardens. And as we do this, though, I will go into some of them a little bit. We have the most certified gardens out of any entity in the state of Florida. We have 10 certified gold Florida-friendly gardens. If anybody has ever gone through that process, it's really, really difficult. So we're really proud of that. A few of ours, when we go for recertification, will get dropped to silver because a few of the plants that are now on the not recommended list, like Liriope, the #1 used plant in the state of Florida, is now on that list. Well, I'm sorry, I don't have the budget, I don't have the time and the resources to replace it all. So we will end up going to a silver category because of that. So up here, as you've been listening to me talk, you can see some of the things that we've accomplished over the years. The biggest one I want to point out is that we've received over $500,000 this last year in donations and over $600,000 since we started this 4 years ago in this journey. I also want to point out our service hours. We have gotten over 7,200 hours volunteered free labor to us this year. It's remarkable. We partner with Alden Road Exceptional Learning Centers. We partner with their CBVE program, which is their community-based vocational on-the-job training where the job coaches come in. I train the job coach trains the students. And then their project search program, which is where it's kind of that next level. And the students end up interning with us and they report directly to our supervisors, but there's always somebody, a job coach from Project Search on hand just in case there's a problem. The majority of the students in the program that we work with are IDD or autistic, and we've been very proud to have hired 3 directly and have been responsible for the hiring of over a dozen students. Now that program I did start before this last journey I was talking about for 4 years. I've been doing that for 10 years. Since I got there. I'm their liaison, and I'm really proud of that. But with that, and then the rest of our volunteer hours, this is why our gardens look so great. I'll show you those. Let's see. You said hit it again? Yes, I think. Okay, there might be a little bit of delay. We had our marketing team do a quick little video for this particular day, just to give you a taste, because I didn't feel like photographs really tell the story. You really got to get into these gardens. But it's really, really special. The majority of people who come to campus, their biggest experience with UNF is either going to the ropes course and to our world-renowned trails and the eco adventures with kids, or they go to lot 18 and walk over to the arena for graduations, right? Most of us in here have done that, right? But you don't really get to experience campus. One of our greatest assets, and also I think in some regards our biggest nemesis, is that we're a huge campus. I mean, we're not as big as UF, you know, or UCF in that regards, but we're pretty good size. We're at 18,000 and we're striving to get to 25,000. So that's not small by any stretch. But we're not seen. We're not in the middle of everything that happens. We're in the middle of the city, don't get me wrong, but you don't see us. Why? Because we're surrounded by nature. That's what makes us so great. We were like the inventors of a sustainable campus. We were founded on that. We have 300 or 400 acres, we'll just round up, 400-acre preserve in perpetuity. Whoop. Okay. Got us out of there. So because we're not seen, we want to invite the public in. We are a public university. One of our favorite gardens, and most notable, is our bamboo garden. If you come out on one of the tours with me, I'll teach you how to actually listen to the vascular system of bamboo and hear bamboo grow. It's like putting your ear on somebody's chest and listening to the blood flowing through their body. And instead, what you're going to do is put your ear up on the culms, get rid of the sound from the other ear so it's nice and flat, and then lower your heart rate by breathing really slow and deep and listening. You can still hear the wind and the clacking happening outside, like as if you put your ear on the floor and you can hear traffic, but you can also hear the water moving up and down the culms. So it's pulling the water from the roots, going through photosynthesis, turning that into glucose and moving it up and down. So each time you listen to it, it sounds different depending on what the plant's doing at that time. So you can try it with different culms to see how each one sounds different at that given moment. The only caveat is that if you see on some of these, and that side over there, sorry, I don't have the clicker. If it's covered in a white efflorescence that kind of looks waxy, don't do it to that one. It's going to feel like fiberglass in your ears. You're not going to be happy. The reason for that is it's the way for the plant to actually protect itself, the way that roses have thorns, or I should say the proper term is prickles. They really don't have thorns at all. They are called prickles, but it's the way the plant protects itself because that means it's a newly developing culm. It's in the grass family, but it's newly developing. And to protect itself when it's soft and pliable and chewable for like koala bears or pandas, I guess, so they don't eat it. It feels like fiberglass in the panda bear's mouth. So you want to avoid those. Okay, and then this shows you a few of the scenes. You can see the girls in the corner. That's a Girl Scout group that came out and visited with us where they were learning how to do it. They thought that was pretty cool. We got some ttaca plants. We got all kinds of really cool plants in there, the bat plants. And then the bench that's in there, one of the things I love about UNF is that we have 4 art galleries on campus, but we have all kinds of outdoor sculptures. Even though we're not deemed a sculptural park, we really should be because of the amount of sculpture on campus. And that particular piece right there was done by Mary Radcliffe. She graduated in 2016, 2018. I guess she designed this in 2016 and graduated in 2018. She's very, very talented. She has 2 other pieces on campus that I absolutely adore, actually more than this, that are above the library. If you come out on campus, I'll point those out to you. But that's really cool. And I love how we allow our students to leave their fingerprint on campus. You know, not too many other places do they get that opportunity. And then in bamboo, besides the bamboo, you get other pleasant little surprises too, like the purple fire spike. And I absolutely love the bluebird vine. It's putting on a show right now, and the red stem ginger that's emerging, you can see the curcuma coming up with those beautiful flowers, but the red stem on it looks almost like a lipstick palm. If you're from South Florida, you would know what I mean with that. It's really cool. And then we have our native gardens. That is around our biology building. I didn't mention yet, but the majority of our gardens are thoughtfully curated so that they reflect the learning that's going on inside the classroom. Since most campuses that have a botanical garden, they're kind of to the side. They're separate. They have a separate entrance. If anybody's been to the Duke Gardens, oh my God, crazy good. USF, et cetera. They're kind of to the side. If you go to Gainesville, if you go to Wilmot, which is beautiful too, it's a city block. It's not fenced in, but it's its own little postage stamp. It's got clear defined borders, okay? Where we're in the middle of everything. So when somebody asked me earlier, well, where's the garden? It's everywhere. It's the entire campus. So it really makes it difficult for me to do head counts on where people are entering and coming in and out. It makes it really difficult for me to guide you to where to go. So I do recommend that you take a garden tour with us. We do offer a garden tour on the 2nd Saturday of every month. All of our tours are free. We meet in front of the library, Thomas Carpenter Library. You can put that in your GPS. It'll take you right to parking lot 2, right where we meet at 10 o'clock in the morning. And rain or shine, we have plenty of covered areas so that we don't have to worry about inclement weather. But it lasts about an hour and a half. Be ready to walk. We will give you places where you can sit down and rest. And then we also have our volunteers on campus that day as well. We have a Saturday group as well as during the week. But our Saturday group, we feed you. So if we have a small group, you might be invited in to enjoy lunch with us. But our native gardens are all 100%. It's around biology, so it's all 100% native plant material. Well, I take that back, 99%. There's a really gorgeous Indian hawthorn majestic beauty tree that, like, I can't get rid of it. It's beautiful. Like, why would we do that? We can make an exception, right? But for the most part, but that's where the students are able to also conduct research. We have a full-scale beach dune, which is really cool. We have the wildflower garden, which is actually the one that I was told to mow down and put into sod. So instead, what I do? I just controlled chaos. I went and got a whole bunch of Walters viburnum densa and created a hedge. So now I have a nice, neat border, kind of like what you would do in an English garden, right? Created this little partake. Now that the edge is neat, chaos can ensue inside. Nobody cares. It's okay now. So there's ways around the rules. And then here's a little bit of a picture of like the dune, the beach dune. And then I don't have great pictures of inside the courtyard, but that's a coastal hammock. I just read recently that it's called Darwin's Garden. I never knew that before. The whole building is really cool. It's LEED certified. We have the most LEED certified buildings in the state system. Every single building that goes in this point forward in perpetuity is also LEED certified. If anybody doesn't know what that is, basically it's the most sustainable building methods that you can possibly attain. And then we have Hummingbird Lane. Hummingbird Lane is right around the corner. So one side's native, one side's a little mix. But basically, we are gardening for our hummingbirds. So the majority of the plants in there are going to have long tubular flowers to attract the hummingbirds, but it is also pollinator haven as well. And then the bicycle wheels, I'm kind of a little silly. I actually took that picture of that hummingbird. Sorry, it's a little blurry. But I had started collecting bicycle wheels on campus 10 years ago because I saw a picture of a sculpture. It was kind of tchotchke in for Pinterest, right? We all see that. I thought, I'm going to do it. So I finally got one of my mechanics in our offices to weld it together and said, this is what I want. I let him kind of have free reign, gave him the paint colors and let him go to town. So he had ownership in it. He's no longer with us right now, but David did an amazing job. And they actually spin, so it's really kind of fun. And in there, we have lots of Turk's caps. So if you come on my Elemental tours, or AKA Zombie Apocalypse tour in the fall, it's basically a food foraging class. And in that class, we will go around and I will literally make you, or because we are Bee Campus USA, I'll get to that more, but I'll make you eat the plants. And then if you do a private tour with us, like with your garden circles and stuff, then we'll end up making a salad with the plants that we foraged on. We also will do that at locations too. So we offer all kinds of different educational programming. By the way, anybody know what that was that I just tried? Perennial peanut, yes. All right, fun fact. Perennial peanut will taste like sweet peas for some people biologically, and for others, it'll taste like raw peanuts. So it's, kind of like cilantro. Cilantro, some people like it, and it's like a spicy parsley, and other people can't stand it because it tastes like soap, right? All right, who said that it was perennial peanut? This is cowboy. There you go. It'll open back up it closes up and folds up at night, similar to sensitive mimosa. That particular plant is called cowboy. There's ecoturf. There's a plethora of other perennial peanuts out there. No peanut is alike. Okay, so you got to be really careful when you're selecting your perennial peanut. I was one of the very first, if not the first person in the state of Florida using perennial peanut. I remember when I met Jerry Stageman for the first time, who provided these for me with sunset, especially ground covers. And I saw it at the trade show and I was like, oh my God, it's like the screaming yellow carpet, right? And I got to have it. And then he sent it to me, and his offices are, or his fields are up in Lakeland. It was in wintertime, and I was in Clearwater, and it looked like a bunch of weeds and dead, like a whole bunch of like spaghettis of roots. And I was like, oh my God, I am so getting fired for this, right? Because like, trust me, it'll warm up with you. You guys just give it 2 weeks. So I put it out, and I put it in the place that could get the most abuse. At that time, I had over 65 employees that were direct reports, but we had over 150 in the building. And they trampled over it every single day, multiple times, to go from the parking lot to the office. And I'm like, oh, shoot, if they could survive that. Somehow it did. And the stuff that got trampled looked better than the stuff that didn't. Like, go figure. But that was the actual eco-turf variety that was developed by the University of Florida. This particular cultivar here is called Cowboy. It's a little bit shorter, doesn't grow as tall. I thought eco-turf was a screaming yellow school bus. Doesn't have anything on Cowboy. Cowboy is like, even UF, because this was developed by the University of Georgia, by Dr. Hannah, even UF specs Cowboy now. It's crazy. It's so beautiful. All right, and then we have Peace Plaza. So Peace Plaza was where the inaugural class graduated from, the first 35 students that graduated in it. And in Peace Plaza, there's a statue of Gandhi that was erected in 2006. And then Martin Luther King was erected by the same artist in 2012. The University of North Florida was the first university in the state system to actually install a statue of Martin Luther King. And then in 2013, 2014, we had, I think that's the correct date. Anyways, doesn't matter. We have a bench, a granite bench in the middle by Thoreau, and he wrote civil disobedience. And why is that important? It's because both Gandhi and MLK quoted Thoreau, civil disobedience. So it's appropriate, it's located in the middle. So when we curated this particular garden, we felt that it was really important to honor the peacekeepers as they face each other. So one's on one end, one's on the other, with Thoreau's bench in the middle. So in there, you are going to find an olive tree. And I apologize. Oh, next picture. Hang on. Next slide. My picture's not really great, but up in the top corner is a dove that I took that picture with my camera phone, which the lens is broke. So forgive me. It's a terrible picture. But I didn't care because it was on last Friday. And I was going through that garden and checking on it because we had lost a limb from the olive tree. And it's kind of like located in like it's a tough location. It's surrounded by concrete. It's usually high and dry, but it becomes a swimming pool. And in the rainy season, fortunately, it's been pretty dry for us. So the tree's struggled a little bit over the years because it kind of gets a little too much water, et cetera. At any rate, so pieces that broke off, and when I mentioned we were messy gardeners, is when we go and trim things, we break everything down so we have very little that we take to our green waste dump. Because again, that's close to my offices. It's an easy 15-minute drive one way. So that's a half an hour of time, and we're talking like little Toro golf carts, Staff can eat up a whole lot of time with very little happening in that time frame. Fortunately, mine are really good, and we don't have that problem, but they could. But anyway, there's little pieces of the stems left, and so the dove was there, and I thought how appropriate with the dove in there, and he's building a nest in the oak trees that's in that location. In the previous picture, let's see if it goes back, the bird of paradise that's in there, that's Nelson Mandela Gold. It's all yellow. So I wanted to kind of go back to the theming on here is everything is about peace. All the succulents, citrus, etc. around the world is known as signs of peace. There's bleeding hearts. We also have some cool cycads in there. And then Prescia, which is the pink flower, that's rose cactus. It's the most primitive cactus on the planet in that it has not evolved to be leafless. So that's really cool. I want a yellow one. Anybody knows where to find me a yellow one? Let me know. All right. And then we have climate change. Climate change, again, the sculpture that's in the middle represents like an origami, yellow origami bird, a folded bird. That was done by our students as student work. And this garden is curated where the majority of the plants are for zone 10 and now 11 A and B as well. So what we do in this garden, we don't protect anything. If it dies, it dies. But we take advantage a little bit of our microclimates, and we'll put like our most sensitive plants to the cold against a south-facing brick wall where the brick will heat up during the day and then it releases that heat during the evening. So depending on the exact location, it could change the climate by 5 to 10 degrees, which ironically is the difference between your zones. So you have 10 degrees between 9 and 10, and then 5 degrees in between when you're saying 9A, 9B, et cetera. So that's how we can use our best judgment is, oh, we think this will survive. But the idea is also to show you how resilient our plants can be and what our planting palette could look like in the future moving forward. And then Alumni Square is really cool. There's a plethora of Florida-friendly and Florida native plants in this particular garden. One of the things I love is you can see the picture where we are planting frog fruit, tangle fruit. It's a really great sod alternative, also known as matchweed. That's really nice. It can be mowed. And then we had lost the tree there, the oak tree, with Ozzie and Harriet to Hurricane Michael. So instead of cutting it down, when I was at the city of Clearwater, I was responsible for the maintenance of our cemetery. And so people would plant trees for loved ones next to the gravesite, and maybe the entire family lineage was still around, and they'd be absolutely heartbroken, and rightfully so, when a tree would die. So what we would do is we would hire chainsaw artists when the tree was sizable enough, like this one was, and kind of gave it new life. And typically that would last until that next generation had passed on. So it worked out pretty well, actually. So we decided to do that here. So this is called the Heavenly Sky Dance. The chainsaw artist, his name is Pastor James Gandy. And when the ospreys mate, it's called the Sky Dance. And so since he's a pastor, it's only appropriate that it's called Heavenly Sky Dance. And it features Ozzie and Harriet. And later on, we will carve the rest of it to match a book that was written by Amy Costa, who works in our recreation wellness and our eco adventures with our kids. And she wrote a story about a home for Ozzie. And it's based on the animals that are in the preserve and where they're located. It's kind of loosely based off of Dr. Seuss's Where Is My Mother? So we plan on carving the characters from that book into the rest of the tree. So we'll have Becky the bobcat, Gus the tortoise, Golden Mouse, etc. It'll be really cute. And ironically enough, it happens to be on the southeast corner of the library. So it only is fitting that that space will eventually, right now it's kind of covered up in construction. We got a lot of construction going on. But that will eventually become a literary garden. And it makes sense with its location on campus, again, tying in function to purpose. Okay. And then you can see the mosaics here. There's 4 columns of mosaics that were done by Nofa Dixon and her students. They're beautiful. And then this is the globe. It's really quite spectacular. We do plan on making some renovations. I don't want to get into a lot of what we want to do because if y'all are gardeners here, garden's never finished, right? So we could go on for days. I want to fix this. I want to do that. I want to do this. But we really want to focus on where we're at. But in this particular garden, though, I am excited that we are going to adopt one of the students, Avery, that I had spoke with, that was a biology student, and said, I really want to kind of help out and stuff at on campus. And I said, okay, well, Avery, what can we do with this space? It seems kind of boring to just plant the plants based off of the continents. That seems just like really like obvious, right? So the time Avery was taking a class on plant evolution. So we are going to transplant and turn this into an land plant evolutionary garden. So it's close to biology. And I think that's really cool. The first piece of it is in the photo on the right over here. It's a pitcher plant bog, carnivorous bog. So we'll have that there. We'll have slow trickling water. So we'll have mosses, lichens, etc., and the forbs, and then we'll go around from there to our ferns, our gymnosperms, our angiosperms, our cacti, succulents, etc. So that's going to be really cool. We're excited about it. Going back a little bit real fast is on the walls. We use a lot of creeping fig. Yes, I know it's on the do not plant list or not recommended. It's not do not plant. It's not recommended. But we use a lot of creeping fig on campus, and it really helps to unify the space, makes it very garden-esque. We do use a growth regulator on it. That helps us a lot. Otherwise, without it, we're trimming all the time. But it really softens the brutalistic buildings. It really gives the campus a softer feel. And I didn't mention this before, but 65% of our students, this is a statistic that was put out in 2019, 65% of the students select their campus based on appearance. So we play a humongous role in the acquisition of students, and we plan on playing just as big of a role in retention. And then we're hoping to get Shell out there too and interacting with us. In here, the roselle that you enjoyed earlier in the middle of in the top, in the middle, in the center, that's the flower. The little buds that you see on the sides, that's the calyx, that's the candy, where you could see where the hole in the stem came from, right? So you could either dry those out, and when it's dried, you can turn around and steep it and turn it into the tea that you enjoyed. Hopefully you enjoyed it. So there's different ways of using roselle. Roselle is 100% edible, all parts. The leaves are really great, tastes like cranberry in a salad. And it's cousin to the cranberry hibiscus, which has the more deep purple red leaves like my pennisetum right here. And so they're closely related. You could do the same thing with that particular plant. They're kind of interchangeable in that regard. Okay. And then bioswale. So bioswale, this was really fun. This is located outside of our College of Engineering, so it's appropriate there as well, because this is green infrastructure. This is sustainable infrastructure. So what we're doing is we're capturing the stormwater runoff from the road and created basically a ditch. It's a fancy ditch. It has to have, you know, a filter layer and gravel, and so it perks just right, because you want to make it where when it rains heavy, you're getting all the water off of the road, sheets into this, and it fills up, but you want it to stay in that basin for 2 to 3 days and perk back into the groundwater and our aquifer where it's getting filtered along the way, opposed to going straight into the storm drain system unfiltered, untreated, and out into our rivers and our oceans, which ends up causing problems with rising waters, pollution, heating up of our waterways, etc. So this is a really, really great way to retain water on site and get it back into the groundwater. I do a class on both bioswales and rain gardens. They're very similar. There's a few differences. We won't go into that right now. And we actually did this garden. It's 2 years old now. I guess it was 2 years in April. We had sorority sisters. So we had 21, 22 sorority sisters and 6 or 7 guys come out and help us plant this garden. How much do you guys think? This thing's almost an acre. How much do you think it cost me to build this thing? I had to dig a ditch. I had to put in a whole bunch of gravel, over 100 yards. I ended up using the dirt, and I piled it up on site to give us some undulations and create a riparian area and a second swale. What do you think? Any guesses? Huh? Well, if I was close. I did it for 8. If I contracted it out and didn't do it in-house and with free labor for some of it, it would have been closer to 50K. So, my friend, you can come up and grab yourself for participating. This is pennisetum. This is in the royal family. This is Majestic Lady. This was developed by Dr. Hannah with the University of Georgia. He studied this plant and developed this plant for over 25 years. So if anybody here who is big into sustainability and you're going, pennisetum, no, no, they will not produce seeds. It is 100% sterile. It can only be propagated through through cuttings and division. Okay. So we're really, really careful about what we do and what we plant. But I really enjoyed this project also because I got to do it with one of my designer buddies, Kelly Tessero with the Elegant Garden. She's fabulous. If you ever get a chance to hear her speak, she's lovely at heart. So we had fun collaborating on this project. Yeah, and then you can see her here with the hat in the middle. She's great. So I wanted to give her props. And then I did throw in a diagram of the bioswale to go into some of the nitty gritty of how it's actually constructed from a construction standpoint. And then I also wanted to show you a picture of what it looks like when it's filled with water. It's really pretty. It's a beautiful space. And then there's that cowboy with the yellow. Yeah, it just screams. And then we have our butterfly garden. I don't know where I'm at with time, but butterfly garden's really fun. It was really overgrown. I remember a couple of the volunteers came out and they were like there in the edge and they're like, you want to do what with this? What? Like, why are you even calling it a butterfly garden? This is nothing but weeds, man. This is terrible. This is a hot mess. And they didn't come back out. It's absolutely fabulous now. We did a good job. I'm really proud of the work that's been put into this particular garden, and it's really quite pretty. It's fun, and when you come out, you also have to make sure that you say hi to my buddy Rusty. He's my wheelbarrow man. He's really fun. But there's all kinds of really great plants in there, and then you can see in the middle the beautyberry up top. That is what the berries look like when they're on the plant for the beautyberry yogurt. And that's what we use to make the syrup with. You can also make a jelly with it. There is a doppelganger that is highly invasive. That's a Japanese beautyberry. The difference is the seeds droop off of the stem instead of nestled up on the stem. So whatever you do, don't use the other one. We'll never get it under control. The birds will eat it. It'll poop it. Next thing you know, like everywhere they poop, you got a plant. It's almost as bad as coral ardesia. And then we have our cycad garden. Cycad is also by engineering. This is on the courtyard side versus the eastern side. And in this particular garden, that's where our plants with a lot of architectural structure are located. Cycads are your oldest living plants on the planet. They predate the dinosaurs. And one of the cool things about cycads is that they have this really great way of adapting themselves in that they may prefer shade or they may prefer sun, but you plant them in another location, they're going to look like they died. They're going to go all the way back to the cone. You're going to think it's gone and lost. And then when things are just right, it reemerges and it's self-adapted. So I'm guessing that's one of the reasons why it's some of the oldest living plants on the planet. I think it's really cool. And we actually had that happen to us. We had a turkey oak, which are notorious for dying on you, like just like no warning whatsoever. Like 2 weeks, boom, done. Like, what happened? I didn't even get a chance to even notice you were half dead. But we ended up planting a whole bunch of cycads that we had spent quite a bit of money on, very rare, and all of them came from a shade house. And so the shade suddenly vanished, and half of my plants died along with it, or so I thought. And I called Tom Brome, who's a local guru and down in Lakeland where we purchased the plants. It's like, just give it a little bit of time. They'll adjust. And they did. So they're now starting to come back. It's not flourishing 100% yet, but we're getting there. They're getting there. You know, they just need a little bit of time. They're a little bit slower to grow now because they're not as happy as they could have been. We've added a few trees to try and help things along the way as well. And then the planter in here was done by our students, and it's like got little fairy gnomes and little mushrooms and stuff. It's really cute. And then we also have hanging from the trees, we have planters as well as saghorn ferns, elk ferns, etc. So kind of fitting our theme with them being some of the oldest living plants on the planet. And the reason why they are endangered is because their natural habitats have all been disturbed. So as a botanical garden, it is our responsibility to keep the lineage alive. So even your coontie palms, which you may think that you have plenty of them, the natural habitats in Florida, almost all of them have been wiped out. So every single one on the planet is endangered because their normal habitat is gone. So we have to preserve them. So one of our jobs at the Botanical Garden is to do that. It also makes for really great research for our students as well. Just be careful in the milky sap. If those of you aren't aware, that milky sap, when you break it open, it does have a neurotoxin in it. So make sure you're wearing non-absorbent gloves because your hands and stuff are like a sponge. If you just go like this, you're fine. You just don't want that milky sap to absorb into your hands if you're dealing with cycads. And then we have our Potager Permaculture Guild. So Potager is kitchen garden in France, or French. And this is located next to Building 16 where our cafe is. By the way, anybody here feeling the pinch with economics these days? Yeah, your budget's a little tight. I'm going to tell you, I normally cannot stand cafe food. Our cafeteria, it rocks. It is so good. Chartwell's does an amazing job. It's so delicious. All you can eat for lunch is like $11.17. That includes your tax and drink. And they have everything, whether you're vegan, vegetarian, you name it. I'm going to give them a little bit of plug because they do a really, really good job. Whatever it is, they always have a stir fry. They have all kinds of things. They do close at certain times in the summer, so they're not always open. So you do need to check their calendar. But if you come out and visit the gardens, check there. A lot of times when I offer our tours to many of the circles, they'll go have lunch there and everybody is happy that they did and it's easy on the wallet. The only problem is I think parking is probably half the cost of eating there if you go during the week. By the way, it's free on weekends. There's no parking on weekends. After 5 o'clock on Friday, it's free until 6 a.m. Monday. Okay, which is good to know. And then we also have hydroponics. And then there's a few of our food crops. So this particular space, we have a whole bunch of ice cream, bananas, all kinds of food crops in this space. And it's kind of nicknamed the snack trail. So we do invite you to try out what's there. There's some places that I don't want you eating on campus, but the vast majority is safe, okay? Attend a tour with me first just to make sure which ones are the green light and thumbs up. And then we have our River of Knowledge. River of Knowledge is in front of the library at Building 2. We have reflexology, which is basically, for lack of a better way of explaining, it's sort of like Chinese acupuncture for your feet with walking on rocks. Say that 10 times fast. So the idea is that if you walk on the rocks and it causes pain, that means there's another part of your body that maybe is like, for me right now, my sinuses are killing me. I forgot to mention to y'all, I'm allergic to 300 plants. Like literally allergic to my job. And my sinuses are going crazy. I have ear tubes to help with the drainage and it's not enough today. It's like, anyway, I digress. But it would tell me that, okay, I walked on this rock and I might have pain in a certain part of my foot and I'll look at the chart that we have next to it and I can see, oh, my sinuses are backed up. Yeah, I got that right. Got to work that out. So we do have that there. And then one of the things that's really kind of fun is up at the top, you can see Laurel. She's one of my supervisors on campus. And this is just newly installed, so it's not complete. We were actually placing those last week. And we have a beautiful art piece that was donated by Lars Larson. And it won a state award 50 years ago. He had it outside at his home for 50 years. And it almost echoes the art that's inside the library on a wall that's like parallel if you could see through the wall and we're like, X-ray vision or something. And so I kind of liked how it echoed that. So we decided to create a frame around it, and it's an aeroid display. So now we have a whole bunch of different tillandsias. So the other ones just arrived today, but I didn't have time to open up the boxes and put them in and take a new picture. But maybe if any of you come out and see me on Saturday for a tour and actually see this in person, you might be able to see that done. And then also adjacent to this space, Mr. Quackers isn't there right now. I apologize. Mr. Quackers banged his nose on the bridge and it made him lopsided. So his equilibrium is out of balance. And as a result, he keeps floating on his side. And it's making everybody cry because he looks like a goldfish laying on his side. So Sergeant Quackers has been removed from the pond and is undergoing some restoration work, but he'll be back. But we also have a floating wetland island. We have a small one. It's only 5 foot in diameter. And it's filled with vetiver grass. Vetiver grass is the #1 erosion control plant on the planet. It can produce roots up to 100 meters deep. So it helps with soil erosion, with mudslides, etc. It's also used in all your perfumes and everything else. It's a really wonderful plant. The idea, though, is that with these floating islands, whether it's with vetiver, which this particular one, again, Dr. Hannah, sterile, can only be divided, doesn't produce seeds because we don't want to create a problem. It will take up all kinds of heavy metals and toxins. So if you take your body of water and you cover it 5% coverage, in the square footage with plants floating, and then you pull them in every couple months and cut the roots and then put them back out, it will reduce the toxins and the algae blooms in your pond, and you don't have to treat them. It naturally cleans them. In addition to that, as you can see from the diagram that I showed, besides improving the water quality, it also creates a estuary for your fish, and it also becomes a wildlife habitat. One thing you can't see from these photos, and I don't think I actually put a slide in here, is that one of the other things I did when I got there, actually I did this 10 years ago, is our retention ponds are all planted, and or the ones on inner campus are now being allowed to grow in a little bit from the water's edge. So some of those 9 principles would be protecting the waterfront and stormwater drainage. And so you should not mow your within 10 feet of your body of water. So we've been doing that now. So some of our retention ponds, even on inner campus around Student Union, which that was like forbidden a while ago, we've been slowly getting people used to a new aesthetic. So they've accepted this new look, where it looks a little rangy, a little raggy, but we try and keep it kind of neat. But we've planted all of that with native plants and allowed them to grow in. And one of the fears I had, though, when we did it within Student Union and within the campus core, as we call it, is that it was going to create a problem with our geese again. Because if anybody remember, we were in the news for the geese and how we controlled the geese with the dog. Well, those geese are so smart. They know Goose Master's cars. I say cars plural because they have different ones, because they started recognizing one. And the next thing you know, they started recognizing another one. So they would leave and the dog would leave. And then as soon as the dog left the premises, they'd come back to the ponds. So I forgot to mention, I'm also responsible for pressure washing. So geese and pressure washing, that's a full-time job. There's no time for anything else. So I didn't want to create a habitat for our resident geese. Fortunately, they're good parents and they won't nest in high grasses because they can't see the predators. So the tortoises and the alligators can sneak up and grab the babies. The ducks, I'm sorry, they're just not quite as smart. They will nest in there, but at least I don't have a goose problem. We also have the orchard. The orchard is up near Butterfly Garden. It is going to eventually become a sustainable food forest where we'll use permaculture practices. That means that we'll be planting things like perennial peanut legumes that are nitrogen fixers. So they will provide fertilizer naturally to our trees so we don't have to manually apply fertilizers. Then we use other plants that work in harmony with them to either attract insects or to repel bad bugs, etc. But that's also up at Student Union, and that's next to our food court up there. So again, we're trying to, like with Potager Garden where we have the cafe, up at Student Union at the food court, we're trying to slap the kids upside the head with where the food comes from, right? Like, here it is, but it's also intended for helping with food insecurities. It's in a location to where if we have an abundant crop in the middle of hurricane season, I don't have to worry about going and gleaning all of that citrus because it's going to blow out windows. So it's in a safe environment there because I've done Andrew and all of that. I don't need to do that again. I was responsible for the cleanup of Charlie, Francis, Jean, and Ivan when I was in Clearwater. Even though Ivan didn't make landfall, it took out our beach, and I had beach rake issues, and we had over 300 million pounds of dead fish. Subsequently, 6 months later, 6 million pounds of dead seaweed. And then I went to Miami Beach and got to deal with Jean and Wilma. I digress, but I want to make sure that I've learned some lessons with dealing with hurricanes. So, at any rate, the peaches just finished blooming. They were delicious. They're a little bit smaller than the fruit that you would get up in Georgia because of our chill time. We also have a really cool flowering garden that when it's not in bloom during the winter, nobody notices it, but then it puts on a show and they get really tall with the Montanoas and some of our other really cool plants. And then the edge is actually located outside of the core. This is a native garden as well. It's over an acre. We are going to be adding a children's fairy garden to this space with little gnomes and stuff, so it'll be really cute. We need a children's garden area. So it's going to be located here, and that is at the entryway and the gate to Eco Adventures and all of our nature trails out at Maple Leaf Boardwalk. And if you've never been out there and have walked the trails, I would highly recommend it. If you're up to the walk to go all the way out to Gopher Ridge, I promise you, I've never been up there without seeing at least 6 to 7 gopher tortoises. It's worth the hike up there. And then we have a really cool Lake Oneida. And plug to our other departments. We do a lot of collaborations with the community as well as internally. And they've now opened up the ropes course, which used to be for students only, and kayaking for students only. You can now check out gear. So you can come and check that out. And we love to go kayaking. You can see a couple of my student federal work study students, Serenity and Emily, enjoying a day out on the water after a hard day's work. Not only do they get paid, but they also enjoy it so much they come and volunteer with me as well. So I work 6 days a week. I don't get paid on Saturday, so I should say I work 5 days a week, and I volunteer the 6 days. So I'm at UNF 6 days a week. And then this is a brand new. It's still under development, but we're working on our international palm garden located where our international foreign languages is at here. And it's really quite lovely. It's getting there. It's a little corner niche, and we're hoping to expand it into the entire courtyard, but it's quite lovely. And then we have lots and lots of containers to amuse you with all the way around campus. I don't know if you could tell up there with like all the little bugs. That's a bladderwort. So that's a carnivorous plant. So it's kind of like has a sticky substance on the top of its leaves, and the bugs get attracted to it similar to like a spider's nest. And that's kind of cool. But we change out our containers quite a bit. We did start this year doing different ones for different like holidays and stuff. So be on the lookout for like seeing some things change. We love evolution in the garden. We use lots of living ground covers, lots of bulbs, all kinds of stuff. So there's always something different in bloom. So a garden never looks the same year round. It always has movement throughout. Even our winter gardens are really nice. And then Setzer Family Healing Garden, one of my absolute faves. This is both for physical and mental wellness. We just dedicated this garden to the Setzer family in October, and we love it. It was designed with a $50,000 budget, so we did it pretty cheap. We had some volunteers help out, and then we did an addition, and the addition was another 20. So we did this entire garden on a pretty inexpensive budget. I will point out though, the healing place statue was already there, reflective pond was there, pergola was there. So we already had in our big palm. So we already had good structure and good bones. It just, the garden had gotten really overgrown. We had Indian hawthorn that were originally planted when the crepe myrtles were 6 foot tall that want sun. And, you know, several years later, the trees are mature. It's now super shady. The Indian hawthorn are now 5, 6 feet tall and leggy and not as happy as they were. So we rejuvenated this space. There was over 7,000 square feet of sod removed on phase 1, another couple thousand on phase 2. So I'm pointing this out because a lot of times people think that sod is less maintenance. It's not. If you know what you're doing, you put the right plant in the right place, your garden will work for you. If you use the Florida friendly principles, you should, after year 2, I'm going to say after year 2, because the first 2 years, I don't care what you do, you're going to be weeding, you've got a lot of maintenance. But after that, you shouldn't have to spend more than 20% of your time in your garden tending to it, right? So you should be able to, in some of our gardens now, it's gotten to the point where, because we're short staffed, what I end up doing, it's like, oh, this garden's finally matured. It's taking care of itself. I can add over here. Well, I can't keep adding and adding with the staffing levels and my volunteers. I run out of resources. So we have to get them to a certain place. So a lot of times I want to do something and I can't because I don't have the resources for it, because then it's going to look neglected, right? I want to be messy, but I want it to look nice too, right? There's a fine line there. We do have like freedom lawns now. I've adopted that where we do have turf. What do I mean by freedom lawn? Anybody have an idea what that means? So it's basically where you don't have a monoculture, and what used to be 100% St. Augustine grass now has a mix of weeds and other grasses. And that actually was born out of, we used to have dedicated mowers just for the St. Augustine grass, and then we had dedicated mowers just for our bahia, for our roadsides, because we take care of all the roadside mowing. And it got to the point where I needed the team that was doing roadside mowing to take over the mowing on the inner campus. And they didn't like to go back to the shop because it takes time and change out the mowers. They didn't like to change the mowing deck. And they didn't like to clean off the weed seeds. So what ends up happening, all those weed seeds from the roadside mowing gets displaced into the inner campus. Next thing you know, freedom lawn, but it's green. Who cares, right? I mean, honestly, it's green, it's lush, it's fine. Instead of spending a ton of money on chemicals, nobody cares. Nobody who's once complained it's that icy matchweed in there, you know. Now, if I have big dead spots, that's a whole different thing, but then I'll just plant a garden. Anyways, I also want to point out that we have hammocks in this space, and that we also, you can see the picture of the students. Those are nursing students, and faculty had overheard me talk about how when you immerse yourself into the garden, how healing nature is. And it's literally has been measured by from a car to the edge of the sidewalk to inside the garden and forest bathing. It's measurable at all of those different points of how much benefit you get. And so they overheard me talking about it and immersing yourself in how it lowers your heart rate, lowers your blood pressure. So they decided that they would have their students learn how to use the blood pressure cuffs and stethoscopes up in the classroom, and then brought them downstairs. And I happened to be coming by, and they're doing it in the garden. I was like, how cool is this? I'm like, where'd you learn that? We overheard you. Like, I had no idea that they even had listened to me or heard me. And I was like, oh, I loved it. It's like they get it. And then the students, so you could just tell the joy on their faces. It was awesome because then, and we've done other things in campus where we'll actually do days where we'll bring out blood pressure cuffs and stuff and actually take readings and show students like how much that we can reduce their anxiety and improve their overall physical and mental well-being through nature. So it's really cool. Love to see it in practice. The labyrinth is really great to walk to for anybody who's into that. And then here's some really cool pictures of some of our mini roses. How many of you have been to the Washington Oaks Park? Yeah, a lot of you, right? How many of you love their rose garden? Yeah? How many of you been to mine? It's better. Just saying. And then Melita actually, oh, gotta tell you, it's up on top. Melita with the vine, that's on the pergola. That is called evergreen wisteria, but it's not a wisteria at all. It's not even in the same family, but it is a legume. So it is nitrogen fixing. But usually Melita doesn't start blooming till August, and it's already started blooming. So this photo was just taken last week, so it started really early. What's cool is it's almost black in color, when you have to almost look up and see the light coming through it to see those magentas and the purple. So that's kind of why you see that angle where you get those beautiful colors. So you got to really look up because otherwise you kind of miss it. It's a really neat plant. And then we have our suicide prevention awareness bench that's located in with the bee patch, and where you can see the students there. And let's see. Oh, and then Bee Campus USA. So we just finished, and actually I just sent it last week, last Friday. I submitted our renewal. So we are Bee Campus USA. It's similar to Tree Campus USA in that it's a designation that requires us to fill out an annual report every year. And we have to do certain things to retain that designation. So it's not like a nicety, oh, here you go, here's your trophy, and then you're done. No, we have to keep moving the goalpost. So we have to add additional pollinator gardens every year. Okay, so we can't just sit with the ones we have, or we have to renovate them. We have to provide public education on our native bees and pollinators. So this, by the way, is predominantly all about our native bees, not our European honeybees. They have their place, but our native bees is what this is predominantly about. How many here know how many native bees do we have in the state of Florida? Anybody know? Guess? So we have 318 native bee species that come from 6 different native bee families. Who made the first guess? I got a prize for you. And then there's 4,000 bees native to the Americas, North America, I should say. And then there's 20,000 bee species worldwide. So these stats and more our students had to learn. So what we ended up doing as part of one of our requirements with the Bee Campus USA was we did a project where our art department, our sculpture department, designed 6 bees out of aluminum, 1/4 inch thick, to represent each of the 6 bee families. So you have, don't ask me to repeat them all because I got to get my cliff notes for that one. I won't remember all of those. But you have your honeybees, you have your different digger bees, etc. And they researched them, or sweat bees, and then they designed them and cut them out. And then we have a big panel that we're going to use at a later date for signage where you can see the negative. But then you can see on these bees how some of them have big, huge, fat turkey legs, and other ones look kind of furry. Then there's one that's painted. I don't know if you can see it there or not. No, it's not in this image. Where one's painted where it looks a little bit like a steampunk factory worker. And that one has a beetle-like body and little itty bitty T-Rex wings for the size of its body. But it's really fun to see how they're painted differently and how they're unique in and of themselves. And that's education. But then these students that painted them after the sculpture department designed them and cut them, then we had a paint-a-thon for 3 hours. And the students we had 6 painters that were assigned to bee. They had to research their bee family. And then they had to tell the public, who knew it was a spectator sport, but it was a nice little crowd, as you can see in the one photo. And there's more that you can't see that were in there. And they had to talk about what they learned about their bee family. So it was an educational component, and then they had to share it to the public as they were painting. It was really cool. And those are displayed in the healing garden, in the Setzer Family Healing Garden, in the bee patch. So I think that's pretty cool. And again, they got to leave their fingerprints on campus. So how neat is that? They can come back years later and go, I did that. And then I've mentioned along the way that we have volunteer community partnerships. We do a lot of impacts with all of them. You can see in the early days with pre-COVID, the majority of the folks that are in that picture, that was actually during COVID. We and stuff, but we also do other crazy things. Like a friend of mine was down south, and Laura said, "Hey, you want to do a dinosaur exhibit at the South Florida Fairgrounds and design it up." Okay, you got a really cool CICAD display. Next thing you know, I'm loading up Bouncing Betty. Bouncing Betty is my box truck that our department uses. That's actually an old Wonder Bread box truck. She bounces a lot. How she got up to 70 miles an hour just to keep me from getting ran off the road, I don't know. But we took her down south and we designed her. That's one of two displays. And ironically enough, I thought, oh God, that's like really, that was like a little like much, even for me. And it's like, that's maybe a little stretching a little too far. Ironically enough, Laura had put out flyers and we had signage about UNF. And we ended up with 50 students that did not know about us that came up and visited, and two actually are attending. So I thought that was pretty cool. David, who's mowing who's got the lawnmower, the push lawnmower. David is one of my kids from Alden Road. He started with me 10 years ago in the program. He graduated, he started at age 18. When he graduated at 22, I've hired him. He just turned 29 last week. He does an amazing job. He works for us part-time. He's not allowed to work for us full-time because of family benefits, but he's great. And then you can see some of our other collaborations with some of the other kids. They also help out in our greenhouse where we do plant propagation and all kinds of other goodies. We can't get into everything. And then in the middle is from one of our events here where we did a fairy garden workshop for the budding gardeners. Yes, thank you. And then in the top is, oh my gosh, this was crazy. They have a problem this year, bless you, with the fairgrounds, but because that's going away, and then we'll have the new ones out by the equestrian center. But we did an event for the Jack's beekeepers. And again, this was more like a honeybee thing, but we had cut from our bamboo garden, like 6 inches long, 5 to 6 inch long, big combs. You can see how big they are, right, in diameter. And then we cut up a whole bunch of little ones, and then I ended up buying a bunch of mason tubes as well, the cardboard tubes. Over 200 of those things. We ran out before the day was over. And then I had another 200 coloring pages that we got wiped out of. It was such an impact. It was so cool. And then we also created a wildflower display with using native and Florida friendly plants. So we were able to talk to the public with that. And we were sitting next to UFIFAS's Florida friendly group. So that worked out really kind of cool because they didn't have all the plants that we had, and certainly not displayed as nicely. But I like to brag a little bit. We work hard. We've earned it, right? But yeah, that was a really cool event. There was over 10,000 people that attended that event. So they've reached out to us, but there's a conflict with the day of the year this time. So I don't know if it's going to happen, but if you see it, I would highly recommend you all attend it. It was really a neat event. And then there's just some examples too of how, like with what I did here, is you can see some food trays of how when I go out to circle groups, or you can come to me, or if I go to you, where I will bring you, like in this case, we've got on the far side those chocolate cookies. Oh my God, anybody like Mayha? Anybody have Mayha cookies before, or Mayha fruit? Tastes like an apple. It's kind of like a crab apple. It's so delicious, and mixed with like a little bit of a peach. Anyways, I make Mayha thumbprint cookies with a chocolate pudding mix that's to die for. So, and then you can see Father from Joyce's pastor that came out with us on one of our tours. We do during the week, I know I probably mentioned it before, but we can accommodate those who have mobility challenges on our private tours. I can accommodate 3 to 6 people. I just can't accommodate a group of 50 that all need a golf cart. That's not going to work out very well caterpillaring through campus. And then again from the Fairy Garden Workshop. And then we also do other things. We did a health and mental wellness day. We do a ton of stuff. But we also are working on pitcher plant restoration in our preserve, where we do firewise mowing as well as controlled burns. And in this particular location, we can't do a controlled burn anytime soon. So we have been going out and clearing the brush so that our pitcher plants can be restored. Now those are looking pretty healthy. That's on this side over here. That's our carnivorous plants. That's the hooded pitcher. And when that particular plant a year ago was only this big, it was barely surviving. So they're starting to fill in nicely. We're really happy about it. And then on the other side over here is Jason, one of our student volunteers, and he's pulling coral rhodesia. You'll see plenty more roundups for coral rhodesia. Coral rhodesia is really pretty, but it's also a nightmare. And it's got beautiful red berries that the birds love. And it gets picked up by fur from animals and gets displaced, etc. The germination rate on coral rhodesia is 98%. So pretty much you can bank on every single red berry is a new plant the next year. So controlling it is a nightmare, and we've got quite a bit of it in one section of the preserve. So what we've been doing is through our roundups is trying to control and contain where we've marked the edges and kind of working our way in to at least keep it from escaping any further out, and then we scout for that. We also do other roundups for Chinese tallow and a few Japanese climbing fern and a few others, but this one right now is our public enemy #1 that we're targeting. So if you have groups that want to come out and volunteer, you don't want to come out on a weekly basis, regular basis. You have a corporation that has volunteer days, we can help. And then with that, I'd like to invite Jenna Green. Many of you have met her earlier. She was helping out over here at the station to come up. And she's a tremendous resource and a help to me. And if it wasn't for her and her department, we would not have gotten the donations we've gotten and have been able to get as far as we've gotten. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to her for a minute.
Okay, I think we're working. Okay. All right. What was that? Oh. Are we looking? Okay. Okay. Here we go. All right. So thank you for having me here tonight. Thank you for Rhonda for inviting me. Super excited to kind of take over the second half of this presentation. Just kidding. It's going to take like 2 or 3 minutes and then we'll get over to questions. But my name is Jenna Green and I am the Assistant Director of Development for Academic and Student Affairs. So I get to work with Rhonda and her team in ensuring that the gardens, the campus have that opportunity to thrive and flourish with the generosity of our staff, our donors, our volunteers. So it really does kind of take a village here. So as we kind of saw throughout Rhonda's presentation, whether we are talking about the bee garden, the healing garden, the river of knowledge garden, those are all projects that aren't taken on necessarily by one person or one department. It is a collaborative effort. It's with the Jacksonville community that we're able to complete projects such as that. So we often cite that a strong UNF lends to a stronger Jacksonville. Well, we truly mean it. So we're on a really big initiative right now to try and get to 25,000 students by 2028. So an ambitious goal, but we hope to see our community grow with us, whether it's jobs, the education we offer. We just launched a PhD program, or for example, we have a Bachelor's of Science starting in spring of 2025 in environmental science. So it's the first of its kind of being an interdisciplinary degree. So with that in mind, I invite you to consider extending your involvement at UNF beyond this conversation this evening. Now, I don't expect you to kind of see all this and feel inspired to write a check for, $25,000 and move on. If you do, please talk to me. I'd love to chat. But like Rhonda said, I mean, a lot of this comes from the involvement of the community and getting engaged. So whether you are interested in volunteering, bring your book club or your golf club out for a tour. She does a really great edible tour. She took me around campus the other day, and it's a lot different, you know, being there and listening to the bamboo, seeing the birds, seeing the pollinators. So it's something that's truly, truly special. And I do hope that you enjoy our campus because it is a gem that's kind of right in the heart of Jacksonville. And a lot of people don't know about it and don't know about the kind of conservation efforts we're doing and the different educational opportunities that we offer as well. So at the end of tonight's presentation, I'll probably be standing off to the side. I imagine Rhonda will be an awfully popular lady with a lot of questions going on. But if you're interested in getting further involved, I hope you come and chat with me. We also have some swag that we would love to gift you with as a thank you for a donation of $25 or more. But otherwise, I hope that you get involved. I hope to see you on campus. And I'll give it back to Rhonda. Thank you.
Thank you, doll. So yeah, so for example, I forgot to mention that the bees, the way we did the bees was actually through donations. Mostly came from FNGLA, which is the Florida Nurseryman Landscape Growers Association. I've been a member for almost 30 years. And they provided donations that paid for each of the bees. So we got donations of $200 for each bees to help pay for the metal materials, and then the rest of it was done by the students. But we've got these lovely socks if you'd like to make a donation for the swag. And then we also, these are dry fit cotton, dry fit. So they're kind of like the performance fabric, but in a cotton blend. And we tout ourselves as the most naturally beautiful university in Florida. I've been to all of them. I absolutely cannot dispute that this is not 100% fact. Okay, so come visit us. Thank you very much. I think that was it. Yeah, questions and answers. And I don't know, there was one more. It just died. That's fine. We're good. It was just a pretty Cyanthus in bloom. The Cyanthus retusa will forgive. We also have a website, and we're looking to expand right now. You can find over 300 plants listed. We actually have over 2,000 plants on campus, not counting all of our cultivars. So we have been busy with our volunteers getting that uploaded to a program called Tree Plotter, and that will actually GPS mark and locate all of them. It'll make our record keeping a whole lot better and easier, but it is an arduous task. So questions?
If you have a question, we'll take 3 questions and then you can corral her afterwards.
You mentioned used growth regulator on some fig, vining fig or something. Where can you get that stuff, and can you put it on hedges around your house?
Absolutely. Great question. So the product I use is called Trim Tech. Trim Tech can be bought locally. You may need to ask your, if you have a pesticide fertilizer company. I can find out for you if you email me how to buy it from them directly, because I know you can. It's great. It's not like any other of the growth regulators from 20 years ago, which meant you cut something off and then it looks ugly, and then you spray it and then it looks ugly, and then it finally starts to grow and then you got to hit it again. Instead, what you do is you're putting it in its flowering state, the plant, so it's looking its best, and it takes the cells, and instead of the cell growth being elongated like this, it compresses them. So then the plant doesn't need as much water and nutrients as well to be happy and healthy. So we use that on the creeping fig, but we also use it on our hedges, etc. The other thing is it will regulate the weeds underneath. So it keeps them from growing fast too. So that's also a very nice little benefit there.
Questions?
It's a great product.
Oh, the name of the growth regulator.
It's called Trim Tech.
Trim-
TRIMTECT. It's awesome stuff.
Questions? Questions?
Game changer.
Oh, okay. No, I mean, to get it on the recording, I do need you. Yeah. going to record you.
Oh, okay. Do you have any designated volunteer days?
Yes, that's a great question. Thanks for asking. So we do every single Saturday except for holidays. We have volunteer Saturdays. We work 8 to 11, 12-ish. Our Bright Future students get 4 hours no matter what. And then one of our volunteers, Diana, will feed everybody. We will send out a volunteer email every Wednesday, tells you where we're going to be working in the garden, where to meet up. There's usually like a breakfast too, or like at least donuts or something like that as well on Saturdays. If Saturdays don't work for you in the wintertime, it goes to 9 to about noonish. If that doesn't work for you, we also offer opportunities anytime from 8 a.m. to 2:30 during the week. We will accommodate whatever your schedule is. So we have numerous volunteers that come out all 5 days of the week. So we'll pair you up with them. If you don't like working with other people, we can also have you work by yourself, but we'll have you work with us first. Make sure that we're confident in your skills before we set you loose. But that works out really well for us. We also have a Bright Future program for our high school students. So anybody who is in 9th grade and above, you have to fill out the volunteer waiver agreement, et cetera. But you can come out and get your volunteer hours to qualify for Bright Futures, which if you have the right GPA as well as test scores, you can get into the universities free of charge. My son took advantage of that and did well enough where he also got merit money, so it covered his housing. And then he had enough credit hours in high school that he graduated early. And so Bright Futures actually rolled into his 5-year master's program and paid for his first semester for his master's degree. So we only had to pay for 2 classes.
Shout out to Bright Futures. All right. One more
So it's
question.
a nice little perk.
Have room for one more question? All right. Could we give Rhonda Gracie a giant round of applause?
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. I'm going to put the QR code back up on the screen. So please do that today before you leave. Thank you. And please come back.
Make sure you like get this. Denise, help me.
Okay, turn this off for me, please. Yeah. I know it's being recorded. I can't get it.
Oh my God.
Button.